Hello and welcome again to Motor Week. Well, we'll be doing some wheel spinning with two turbos from Dodge, namely the Dodge Daytona Z and the Dodge Colt. We'll also have the latest in the minivan trend with the Chevy Astro and GMC Safari. Pat Goss has the latest batch of car problems to solve from viewers. And Joyce Braga is going to look at the upcoming Renault Alpine and a car you've probably never heard of, the Yugo. But first, here's something you've definitely heard of. This is what car makers slap on when they want to get more performance from smaller engines without using too much extra fuel. It's a turbocharger, of course. By now you probably know how it works. Exhaust gas turns one side and that forces air into the engine on the other side for more power. But there's something you probably don't know. The company that sells more turbo cars in the U.S. than anyone else is none other than Chrysler. And here are a couple of ways they do it. Starting with this year's edition of the Dodge Daytona Z Sport Coupe. It first came out a little over a year and a half ago, and we're seeing a lot of subtle but important alterations in its second model year. The most significant ones are in the drivetrain. The 2.2-liter turbocharged motor now has an electronic boost control. That allows up to 9 pounds of pressure during acceleration before it falls back to a routine limit of 7 psi. So you get a 3% increase in horsepower to 146. Next, the standard 5-speed transaxle shifting forks are now activated by a twin-rail slider system. It makes things less notchy, but it's still not perfect. We've already tried the revised power plant in the lighter Shelby Charger, so we knew the Daytona would be fast, even if it does weigh 2,810 pounds. 0 to 60 takes only 8 seconds. At a quarter mile, it's dispatched in 16.2 seconds at 84 miles per hour. That's very quick and overall about 2% better than last year's car. 40 to 55 passing time is also lightning fast, 4 seconds flat. But even with tons of Chrysler money spent for equal-length front drive shafts, torque steer is still massive. Put the pedal to the metal and you have to fight the wheel to keep anything like a straight course. This is a problem on almost all front-drive turbo cars. Still, the Turbo Z remains one of the most maneuverable cars on the market. Slalom transits are fast and flat with quick ratio, hard-effort power rack and pinion steering, allowing near-perfect communication between the driver and the road. Bigger tires and 5-lug 15-inch wheels have also been added for 85, and they help the solid axle rear end stay on proper track. Plus, the suspension uses gas-filled struts and tube shocks to help retain a bearable ride over all but the roughest surfaces. Larger tires also seem to help overcome our past reservations about the Daytona's power disc drum brakes. Hard stops from 55 averaged 125 feet, but unlike our previous Daytona test car, there was no tendency for the Z to squirm from side to side before stopping straight. The pedal also felt firm, not spongy as before. The exterior of this top-line $11,620 Daytona is the same as last year. Color choices are limited, but include red over silver or the much more ominous all black. Inside, seats offer even more support, but a too long steering column meant that some motor weakers had to drive in a more reclined position than they'd like. On the other hand, the fully instrumented cluster still has one of the best formats around. While the rear seat is best left to children, the fold-down cushions and large hatch mean you still get more than a bit of practicality. This is echoed by commendable EPA fuel economy estimates of 19 city and 29 highway. Our 100-mile urban loop result was an even better 30 miles per gallon. A non-turbo Daytona would give less than a 10% gain. But then that is the turbocharged game. Much more power for just a little more petrol. It works here and proves that catching a few of the Dodge Daytona Zs can be a real eye-opening experience. But if you really want an adrenaline-producing combination of turbocharged performance and economy, cast your eyes across the Dodge showroom to the imported Colt Turbo hatchback. Mitsubishi builds it, and you can also get it at Chrysler Plymouth outlets or from Mitsubishi's own dealers in the form of the Mirage Turbo. All new in '85, the Colt hatchback rests on the same 93.7-inch wheelbase as the four-door sedan Colt Premier Turbo we tested earlier. But this tiny sumo rocket takes on its most endearing form in this three-door version.
With 102 horsepower and 122 pounds of torque to pull around a modest 2,240 pounds, acceleration is expectedly rapid. 0 to 60 is eclipsed in 9.8 seconds, with a quarter mile now rated at 16.9 seconds and 79 miles per hour. A standard 5-speed manual has replaced the old Turbo Colt's twin stick, and a 3-speed automatic is an option. We like this 5-speed manual pattern a whole lot better than the twin stick. The linkage is above average for front-drive cars. And if you're cruising along in the tall overdrive top gear, that turbo motor will let you pass quickly without a downshift. Of course, there's still that problem with torque steer. It's almost impossible to completely control. Despite a lot of engineering effort to eliminate it, we found more torque steer in the Colt Turbo than in last fall's Turbo Premier. The hatchback's lighter weight could have made this more obvious. But that's about the only negative on the performance balance sheet. Handling and braking in the latest Turbo Colt have been improved almost beyond recognition from past hot rod mini Mitsubishis. Transits through the slalom were brisk and stable, and the standard non-power steering is quick. It's only heavy in parking situations. Hard stops produce straight, nearly lock-free results of a brief 108-foot average from 55. The front disc rotors are vented, which precludes noticeable fade. A lot of the credit for better handling and braking has to go to the Yokohama 60 Series performance tires. A unique asymmetric tread pattern makes them good and sticky under speed in both wet and dry. The front cabin of the hatchback Colt Turbo is also the same as in the notchback Premier. It's a mixture of show car high-tech and econo car practicality. Controls are mostly well located, if a bit big. And that includes the large horn buttons. It's hard to hit them when you need them. On the other hand, the hooded instruments are well grouped with minimal glare. But like we did with the Premier, we have to complain about the lack of both voltage and oil pressure readouts. But people in the front will have only praise for the roomy environs, thanks to the firewall being moved 3 inches forward, and multiple adjustments on the seats allow for tip-top support and comfort. Rear seat room is more than adequate for 2, but you can be sure that this is still a practical Colt, thanks to the folding backrest and resulting large cargo room. Also a tight 33-foot turning circle, and fuel economy ratings of 24 city and 30 highway. We got a respectable 25 on our 100-mile economy loop. And then there's the price. Again, even with a turbo, this is still a Colt, so the base list with all these features is under $7,800. We've been fond of the Dodge Plymouth Colt for years, ranking it the #1 Econo box twice in our Motor Week Driver's Choice Awards. With its total revamping for '85, it's going to be hard to beat again. And we can also expect to see a lot more of them on the roads. With the elimination of import restrictions on Japanese cars, Chrysler has announced that it will bring in up to 200,000 more Mitsubishi products each year. After all, this Colt Turbo is fast, sure-footed, and still inexpensive. It's also still one of the most practical enthusiast packages going.